can create a sustainable, fulfilling, and financially stable career while working part-time. And that, my friend, is exactly what I want for you. Welcome to The PA is In, the show created by PAs for PAs, where codependency with your supervising physician is a thing of the past, optimal team practice is the future, and physician associate has taken the place of physician assistant as the professional title of choice. I'm Tracy Bingaman, and I'm obsessed with redefining what success as a PA looks like and what it feels like. Here you'll find the mindset shifts, systems, and processes I use to escape healthcare burnout and integrate my work into my life. Work-life balance is a myth, and an integrated life where you thrive professionally, not a balancing act, is the goal here. My mission is to help you to grow into a unicorn PA who loves their job, has abundant energy, time to spare, and work-optional financial freedom. The PA is in. So, you're thinking about going part-time. Maybe you're dreaming of more time with your kids, cutting back on charting at 9 p.m. on the couch in your pajamas, or finally taking control of your schedule. But here's the thing. Most clinicians make some big mistakes when they transition to part-time. And these mistakes, they can cost you financially, professionally, and personally. Making these mistakes can leave you feeling trapped in a job with full-time hours that simply don't fit with your life. You'll keep trying to squeeze your life into the cracks in between work, and that feels, quite frankly, like crap. So today I'm breaking down the biggest mistakes that clinicians make when they are going part-time, and most importantly, how to avoid them so you can make a part-time pivot where you're practicing medicine part-time as smoothly as possible. You're exhausted. You're juggling long hours, charting at home, and feeling like work is taking over your life. You keep telling yourself you'll figure out how to cut back, but the weeks fly by and nothing changes. What if I told you there's a better way? The Pathway to Part-Time is my group coaching program designed for clinicians like you, providers who want more time, more balance, and more control over their schedule without sacrificing their income or career growth. Inside, you'll get a clear, step-by-step plan to go part-time, real-world strategies to approach your employer with confidence, and a community of like-minded clinicians making the transition alongside you. No guessing, no trying to figure it out alone, just a proven process that works. Imagine waking up without the weight of burnout, knowing you have time for your family, your health, and the things that matter most, while still thriving and feeling fulfilled in your career. Spots are limited, and we are starting soon. If you're serious about working less and living more, now is the time to take action. Head to the link in the show notes to join us inside the Pathway to Part-Time today. Okay, back to the show. So what's the risk here? You're thinking about going part-time, but the risk of a poorly planned transition from full-time practice to part-time practice can be high. So let me tell you what I'm talking about here. So going part-time sounds amazing. But if you don't approach it strategically, it can turn into a financial nightmare, a career setback, or just a major stressor instead of the dream that you envisioned coming true. I've seen clinicians make the same mistakes over and over again, and I even made some of those mistakes myself when I first started my journey to part-time clinical practice. And trust me, you do not want to be the person who cuts their hours only to realize that their income dropped more than expected, their employer is frustrated with them, and they feel more stressed than ever. Imagine pitching to switch to part-time. Your employer says yes, and then 2 months in, you realize that although your hours at work are less and you're seeing a few less patients, your workload is exactly the same, if not more. This, my friend, is not a recipe for success, fulfillment, and healing that touch of burnout that you've been carrying around with you. But the good news is that doesn't have to be your story. Because today I'm going to walk you through the biggest mistakes and how to avoid them like a professional part-time provider. Okay, here we go. The 5 biggest mistakes that clinicians make when they are going part-time. I feel like me doing this is like me like pumping. If you aren't watching on YouTube, you have no idea what I'm talking about. So mistake number 1 is not planning your finances first. I cannot put too fine a point on this. I cannot emphasize this enough. If you don't have a financial game plan, you are setting yourself up for failure. So, what's going to happen if your paycheck is smaller than you expect? What about your benefits? Will you lose things like health insurance, retirement contributions, matches to your retirement, CME funds, PTO? How will you adjust your household budget to make part time financially sustainable for you and your household? So you can avoid this sort of like, we hope it's all going to work out financially by before you even ask to go part time, sit down, have any conversations whatsoever, take the part time readiness assessment. This will help you to do things like take a look at your finances, think about benefits and expenses, and just make sure that going part time is not going to significantly negatively contribute to your financial future. Run your real numbers. Know exactly how much you need to earn and how to structure your compensation so that you're going to make sure that you're making that in this new part-time capacity with different hours and maybe a different role. If needed, you can explore ways to supplement your income. Things like side gigs, consulting, telemedicine, or even negotiating a higher hourly rate, even though you're going to go part-time, sometimes will end up with you earning more in the part-time role than in the full-time role. Mistake number 2 is failing to properly communicate with your employer. Here's what most clinicians do. They walk into their boss's office, they sit down, and without warning, they just ask to go part time. No strategy, no plan, no numbers, no lead up to this conversation, no asking, is this possible? Do we have a structure for this? What about a position that was part time? And then they haven't had these conversations. They haven't sought out the facts. They haven't investigated the openness of their employer to a part time position. And then they're shocked and startled and honestly angry and upset when they get that no. So you can avoid that by coming to this conversation prepared. Your employer is going to want to know how it benefits them, not just you, for you to go part time. This is almost always you saying, hey, patients love me. I'm good at my job. I want to keep working here. But in order to keep working here, I would need my schedule to be adjusted. Them not having to replace you by recruiting and onboarding someone else and doing the downtime and searching out a new provider, it does save them money. It does save them time. Sometimes you have to remind them of that because sometimes all they hear in the minute is, oh my gosh, Tracy's not going to be here 5 days a week. She's only going to be here 3 days a week. What are we going to do with all of her patients? So another way you can avoid this lack of communication or just like a shutdown no from your employer first thing is to frame it as a win-win. Show how you can still deliver high value, provide exceptional patient care, and just be a really great asset to the practice, even if you're working fewer hours a week. And then anticipate their concerns. Things like patient coverage, scheduling, revenue, and have solutions, data, numbers, and arguments ready to address those concerns, to answer those questions, and know that you're going into this and it's going to be a dialogue. Very rarely do you walk into your boss's office and say, I'd like to go part-time. And they say, oh my gosh, we were hoping you would ask that. Here is the plan. Here is how it works. It's often a little bit of an uphill battle in terms of getting clarity from HR. How does the pay work? How does the structure work? What benefits are going to change? What benefits are going to stay the same? There's lots of questions that you need to answer in this transition. Mistake number 3 that clinicians make, and this is a huge one. You do not want to make this mistake. It will make you feel like part-time was the worst decision that you've ever made. And it is underestimating workload changes. So most clinicians assume that going part-time means less work overall. But in reality, if you're not intentional about setting boundaries, you can end up doing almost the same amount of work for less pay, sometimes on your own time, and that just leads you to feel very frustrated and resentful. This is not, I repeat, this is not a win for you. So, charting outside of work hours, answering emails and calls and in basket requests on your day off, feeling like you're working full time, but now with part time pay, these are signs of a failed part time pivot where you got the part time hours right, but you didn't build the boundaries right and you didn't adjust your workload. And the healthcare system is still expecting you to work and produce like you're a full time provider, but you are now working reduced hours. So you can avoid this mistake by getting clear on the workload expectations. Are you still responsible for the same number of patients in a day? What about meetings? What about admin tasks? What about committees and in baskets and weekend coverage and call? Like, how do each one of those things change if you adjust your schedule from a 1.0 to a zero point 0.8, from a 1.0 to a zero point 0.6? What does that look like? And what is the expectation? Because you need to know that going in, because sometimes it feels like they expect full-time work out of you, even though you're getting part-time pay. You need to set boundaries. Without boundaries, you will perish in a vat of just in basket messages and expectations, and you'll have part-time hours, but you'll have a full-time workload. Be explicit about when you are and are not available, what this new position entails, what it doesn't, what you will continue to do, what you're not going to continue to do, what you want to get paid to do. If you do a lot of charting at home, ask them to pay you hourly and see if they're willing to pay you hourly for the time that you work. And then you can work and chart at home flexibly on your own time and get paid. Listen, if you are charting at home and you are getting paid for it, you feel better about doing it than if you're getting that charting done at home and you're not getting paid to do that charting. And the next thing is to be intentional with your time. When you're working part-time, be really intentional about not letting work creep into your days off. Or if you do simply know that you're going to log on, you're going to chart, you have admin stuff to do, you're going to work, you have tasks that fall outside of your work hours, set it up so that you can get paid hourly for that time. All right, mistake number 4 is not thinking about career growth and future opportunities, or being so concerned about career growth and future opportunities that you don't go part-time because you're worried that you're going to stall your career. So if you're not careful or intentional, that can happen, but it's not a super common thing because you will always be marketable. You will always be as marketable as your ability to share and pitch yourself and sell and land a job. And you and I could both walk into any ER in the entire country and say, I'd like to see patients here, and get hired doing that, doing something that you've done in the past, doing a brand new specialty. Doesn't matter. You are marketable. So don't let this fear of, if I step out of the full-time fast lane and into the quote unquote slow lane and into the part-time lane, that it's going to totally crush your career and you're never going to be able to grow. Everything is temporary, and the only permanent thing in life is change. So you want to consider things like long-term career potential and growth opportunities, and you want to take a serious look at the implications and what your career goals are. But don't let this unknown and unfounded fear of what would happen if you went part-time hold you back from trying, from considering, from investigating what part-time practice of medicine would look like for you. So you can avoid this feeling like, oh, I just totally dislodged and sidetracked my career trajectory by doing things like continuing to invest in yourself inside and outside of work, take on projects, mentorship, make sure you stay up on your CME and professional development so that you keep growing. You can also do things like be a part-time leader or step into a specialized role within your part-time position. Keep networking. Your career doesn't have to stop just because your hours are reduced, and oftentimes this opens up the door for you to have some time and capacity to do some of the other things that right now you just simply cannot. You do not have the bandwidth right now. Our 5th and final mistake, this is a huge one. If you are multitasking, if you have wandered away, come on back. You do not want to miss mistake number 5. The 5th mistake that clinicians make is assuming that part-time work isn't possible for them. This is probably the biggest mistake that I see providers make, is they write part-time off as a not a possibility. They say, this is not an option for me. I hear it all the time. No one at my job works part-time. My employer would never go for it. I can't afford to work part-time. Part-time simply doesn't exist in my insert descriptor, specialty, setting, job, role, organization, employer, part of town, part of the country. And guess what? I thought about some of these things too, and I thought some of those things were true until I asked, until I sat down and made a plan, and until I made it happen. I am still the only part-time provider in my department and one of only 3 out of something like 14 or 15 clinicians who works part-time. Someone has to go first. Why can't that be you? There are a couple of ways to avoid this. It can't possibly happen to me. Never going to happen. They would absolutely never, they said no before. So stop assuming and start strategizing. Can you talk to someone else? Can you get someone to champion your cause? Can you prove to them how valuable you are so that they will see why retaining you really matters? Learn a way to negotiate effectively. And don't take no for the final answer. Take no as not the way you asked, or not right now, or not in that way, but continue to push and continue to explore how they can work with you and how you can make this work for both of you. And get support, because trying to do this alone is so much harder than it has to be. You might not know this about me, but one of my most despised tasks as a clinician is charting. That's why I'm always searching for hacks, tools, and tactics to make charting more accurate, efficient, and less of a huge pain in the butt. If you too want to spend more time connecting with your patients and less time pointing, clicking, and typing into their chart, you should definitely check out Freed AI. Freed AI is a medical scribe on a mission to free clinicians everywhere from the purgatory that is writing notes. Freed AI listens, transcribes, and writes your medical documentation for you. You can even use the code PA50 for $50 off your first month with Freed AI. These notes are written in your style and done for you by the end of the visit. Can you imagine what it would feel like to leave work on time, notes done, without having to crack your laptop open in the evening? Freed is HIPAA compliant, completely secure, and it takes less than 30 seconds to learn. Get back to what you love doing, treating your patients, and let Freed AI do the rest. If you don't plan this transition, this pivot to part-time practice of clinical medicine well, you could lose benefits and income without realizing it, or without really realizing the implications that that's going to have on your life. You could damage your relationship with your employer if you're not communicating effectively and proactively. You could end up feeling even more overworked and even more underpaid than you are right now, stuck in a schedule that doesn't actually serve you, or with a better schedule but the same workload. But if you take the time to plan strategically and negotiate well, you can create a sustainable, fulfilling, and financially stable career while working part-time. And that, my friend, is exactly what I want for you. To make sure that you don't fall into these common mistakes and make these missteps along the way, let's work together and walk through your current situation together so I can give you some dedicated, unique, personalized advice to help you avoid some of these things. If you're considering part-time, but you're worried about the financial impact, you don't know how you'll approach your employer, you really want to make this transition as smoothly and as confidently as possible, you do not have to figure it out alone. Book a part-time pivot call with me. As always, the link is in the show notes, and we will map out your game plan together. On this call, we will talk about assessing your financial readiness so you don't end up underestimating your income needs, strategize your employer conversations so you present a strong win-win proposal with some of these questions and objections already covered as a part of the proposal. We make sure that you're setting clear boundaries when you're ready to make that part-time pivot so you actually work part-time, not full-time hours or full-time workload with part-time pay. And we'll plan for your long-term career success so that you keep growing even when you're working fewer hours. If you are serious about making this move without falling into these common pitfalls, booking a pivot call with me is the next step. Grab the link in the show notes and get a time on the calendar so that we can sit down and talk about this. Your schedule should work for you, and I'm going to show you exactly how to make that happen. That's all for today. This PA is out. Congratulations, you've just joined an awesome club. By listening to a full episode of The PA is In, you are officially on the Unicorn PA team. Welcome aboard. What most team members do is they subscribe to the podcast because that allows them to automatically get the latest episode of the show. The life of your dreams exists on the other side of taking action. Keep making small shifts and keep getting better. Your life will improve, your career will soar, and you will have the confidence you need to create your own success. I will see you in the next episode. This PA is out.